Hello and welcome to Take Time. I am your host, Patrick Marlett, and today we are being graced with the presence of an icon. In my hands, I'm holding the Rado Hyperchrome Captain Cook Limited Edition. Now, I was going to try to be objective with this review, even just a little bit, but I'm absolutely in love with this watch. Like many of us watch collectors, I got into the habit of collecting dive watches early on, with many of the pieces I was desirous of being vintage divers from the 60s, the Breitling Super Oceans, Zodiac Seawolves, and of course, at least for me, top of that pack was the Rado Captain Cook. And here in my hand, I'm holding a modernization of that original design. Of course, the originals were 35 millimeters in diameter. This is slightly larger at 37, but everything else about this piece is just perfect. Now, I've taken in other Rado Hyperchrome Captain Cooks before, the black and brown dial versions. They're all lovely, but nothing has held my attention quite like this one has. That beautiful field of wheat gold dial harkens back to those tropical patina 1960s Captain Cooks that I adore so much. And there's something nostalgic about being able to enjoy a piece like this that I've admired for so long. And on that note, I'd like to thank Fernanda and of course Rado for sending this piece out for review. I have had the time of my life being able to wear this for as long as I have, and it's definitely on my list now of watches to buy this year. Now, I normally like to go over the bad and then move on to the good before giving my final verdict on a watch, but with this review, I just want to discuss all of the highlights of this watch, of course going over all the specifics of it before touching on what makes this such a special timepiece. The Rado Hyperchrome Captain Cook Limited Edition I have in today measures 43 millimeters in diameter, excluding the crown over at the 3 o'clock position there. It's roughly 43 millimeters from lug end to lug end and is 11.1 millimeters thick with 19 millimeter lug widths. The 10-bar water-resistant case here is of course made out of 316L stainless steel. The crown itself doesn't screw into the case, but you needn't be too concerned about that. Trust me, the water resistance rating is accurate. Up top side, we have a boxed sapphire crystal, which I really want to highlight in a second. The way they've executed it is absolutely gorgeous. And the bezel insert is made out of what they call high-tech ceramic. The bezel itself is 120 clicks, and on the inside of this watch, we have a C07 611 ETA movement. The case of these modern Captain Cooks is extremely faithful to the original design, though the overall scale has been slightly enlarged for the modern taste. From the 35mm diameter to the 37 we have here, I can say that this is a great unisex scale. And that C07 611 on the interior features an 80-hour power reserve, so if you go through a lot of watches in your rotation, this should be able to keep up with you. Now, unlike the original design, this does lack that of a magnifier under the glass here, but I can honestly do without. The date wheel itself is very accurate though, with red numerals instead of what is commonly found on those being black. The limited edition package comes with a roll bag, a spring bar tool, a mesh bracelet, and a nylon strap. However, the leather option here is the one I've been wearing this on most, and the one I would advise you wear it on. It looks absolutely stellar in combo with this leather strap, and this leather strap is one of the nicest straps I've ever had sent in. The leather strap that accompanies the limited edition Captain Cook here was perfectly mated for this watch, and it is of the finest quality. The accent threading to the sealed ends, it's all just perfection, and it also smells fantastic to boot. I couldn't take this strap off even if I wanted to. Also, I'll state that the buckle of this strap is really lovely as well. It's certainly a custom build. I haven't seen this from another brand, and it mates really well, not only with the watch head, but the strap itself. The total package for this Rado Captain Cook limited edition will set you back $2,100. It's not that much more than their standard options. And I have to say, to me, this is the one to own if you're interested in buying into the Captain Cook family. If you wanted to own a piece of history, this is the one to get. The dial of this Captain Cook is unlike anything I've ever seen from any brand. It is the most beautiful golden hue, and it's finished so perfectly. I love the way it contrasts the silver finish of the Reissue and the way it looks with those somewhat aged lume markers. And the lume on this watch is really fantastic as well, though I'll state for majority of us, I don't think we'll be taking this diving if we do decide to buy into this package, but the lume is adequate for day-to-day use. The styling and proportions of this watch are just perfect, at least they are in my book. The handset is perfectly legible and beautiful and iconic and on any other Captain Cook, but again, when paired with this dial, unbeatable. And that case has that refined simplicity I like to talk about on the show, like many vintage watches do. They were built for a task, and there's very little by way of decoration, but the way it is executed here is top-notch. The case of the vintage Captain Cook, and by extension the hyperchrome Captain Cook we have in for review today, did little to distinguish itself from its competitors. I feel like most of the design language went into the dial to separate one watch from one of its competitors. For the most part, a lot of those watches, those earlier 60s divers, their cases looked extremely similar to one another. And as a matter of fact, they shared many of the same details. But nowadays, when you have a Captain Cook like this in a crowd of modern watches, nothing really screams the kind of utilitarian, purpose-built feel that this watch has in hand and on wrist. Quite the same. When you look at this, you know it was built for a purpose. There's very little by way of decoration in concerns to this case design. Honestly, it's just a high-polished case with an overly large bezel and a concave insert. And because of that, it's beautiful in its utilitarian nature. And this is the kind of look you just don't get from modern watches. Well, up until the resurgence of these heritage divers. Rado isn't the only brand bringing back vintage style divers. On the contrary, every single brand that has a heritage is bringing back one of their vintage looks. But in my opinion, Rado is the group doing it best. This piece captures what the Rado Captain Cook was and still is, a beautiful utilitarian dive watch. And on that note, I'd love to provide you all a wrist shot so you can see what this might look like on your wrist. Regretful that I had this one sent in. I've been wanting to take a look at this Rado offering for some time, and I didn't want to just take in a standard model. I wanted to see this limited edition one, as I knew this is the one I was most interested in, and honestly, I can't keep it off my mind or off my wrist in this instance. But here it is on my 7¼ inch wrist, the Hyperchrome Captain Cook limited edition. This is what it'll look like for all of your admirers, and when you are going to admire it, it's going to look a little something like this. And here's the Cook on my 7¼ inch wrist, and I think it's absolutely stunning. I just can't get over how beautiful that dial is. Now, there's one thing I want to talk about, and that's the overall scale. I think for some of you audience members, you're not going to want to wear a watch that's 37 millimeters in diameter, or you're just not going to be able to. You know, I think if your wrist is over 8 inches in diameter, this might be a difficult sell for you. Also, the fact that this doesn't come in the larger scale really stinks. But if you can rock a 37 millimeter diameter watch, heck, you know what? If my wrist was over 8 inches, I'd still wear this thing. It's honestly the perfect unisex scale, in my opinion. If you're a male audience viewer, female audience viewer, this is going to fit well on most all wrist. And remember, men's watches used to be much smaller than this. I mean, this is an example in and of itself. This is actually a little bit larger than the original model. And honestly, I'd still hunt one of those down if this model didn't exist. This is easily my favorite watch of 2019, and I'm somewhat regretful I had this sent in, because now I really want to own one. It's just beautiful. Woo! This is probably the most you'll ever hear me gush on this channel. Folks always fault me for being overly critical. Well, I wasn't critical at all about this one, was I? Now, there are a few things I can remark on that you should probably know about. The bezel action here, it is rather audible. The bezel itself isn't made out of that much steel, and that's what's providing that tinny sound when this runs around the dial. It's 120 clicks, and it clicks perfectly into place, although there is a little bit of backplay. However, the alignment of this insert is fantastic. But if you don't like an audible bezel, you may not like that sound there. Also, the crown on the 3 o'clock position here, it is a little tight on the wind, and it can be difficult if you have larger hands like myself to operate. And the thing is, it's an automatic watch as well. So if it's wound, you don't need to be too concerned about hand winding it. And once you get it out to the first position, it's really not that difficult to manage. You can see here, I mean, it's fairly easy to operate. But again, if you have larger hands like myself, you may find that difficult to operate. Lastly, of course, the 19mm lug width is going to be troublesome for some, but not a huge issue. If you're buying into this package, you're getting all the accessories you should need with this watch. And that's it. It's perfect. I think it's the perfect watch. If you're going to own one watch, maybe own this watch. I really enjoyed my time with this piece. I'm so upset that I have to send it back, but I will definitely be looking forward to picking one of these up in the future. This is the biggest tease. I knew I was going to like it. I just didn't think I would like it this much, but to me, this is really the quintessential dive watch. If you wanted to own a piece of history, if you wanted to own something that looked and felt like an original 1960s dive watch that you adore, if that happens to be the Captain Cook, well then this is a great route to go. Rado, you knocked it out of the park with this one. This is a truly special piece and a great limited edition offering to own. This is one out of 1962. They don't specifically tell you which one in the lineup this is, and I kind of prefer it that way, but you know what? I would be happy owning any one of these. Really smashing job with this piece. At any rate, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button. Looks a lot like this guy. If you have friends, forums, or groups that are interested in picking up the Captain Cook like I am, share this video with them so they know to buy it. Feel free to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon next to that if you want to see my videos when they air. We're going to talk about other watches here, but dang, it's like when you meet your hero and they actually meet your expectations. That's what this watch was like. I'm reviewing it still. It's so nice. Again, my name is Patrick Marlett, and thank you, Rado, for the time. If you are ever interested in picking up a Captain Cook, this is the one to get. This limited edition in particular. I will own one of these. I don't know if it's gonna be this year. It's gonna be very soon. I'll let you guys know if I'm selling things. I really adore this watch, and it's truly something special. If you are ever considering it, if that's why you're watching this video, just do it. This is the first time I'll make this claim. You should just do it. Gosh, why'd you have to send me this, man? Ugh. At any rate, take care, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.